All right, welcome back, everybody. Ellis Cannon, joined right now by Jim Byrne Jr., who, of course, is the chair of the PA Democratic Party, and also our good friend Lenny McAllister, who hosts the Lenny McAllister Show right now, Newsradio 1020 KDKA. Nice smile on you there, Lenny. Congratulations with that.
Thank you very much, kind sir.
All right, and how are you, Jim?
I'm well. Lenny, congratulations.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
All right, now let's talk about, right off the bat, something that we spent time on this set and people around the country did earlier this week at great depth, and that is, what is marriage, who defines marriage, and whether or not it should be portable for both same-sex and heterosexual couples. So my question to you, Jim Byrne Jr., is simple. Should you be allowed to marry Lenny McAllister, who has the Lenny McAllister Show on Newsradio 1020?
Well, not because he has the Lenny McAllister Show, but look, if at the end of the day we were two single consenting adults and that's the decision that he and I wanted to make, then absolutely. I mean, I thought the arguments were brilliant in front of the Supreme Court, but at the end of the day, it boils down to this. Two couples who are in love and who want to be married, should they be discriminated against because they are of the same sex when all they want is the same way of life as their heterosexual counterparts? And I think the answer is they should enjoy those same rights and privileges.
Lenny, should they have those same rights and privileges? Isn't there a fear of writing in something new to the Constitution that wasn't there?
Number one, there is a fear of writing in something new into the Constitution that wasn't there. And number two, I mean, is it, one, a constitutional right? And number two, can you give those same rights and privileges without redefining the word marriage? And that's something that has constantly come up. We had seen states previously, 5-10 years ago, have civil unions that provided the same exact protections that the institution of marriage has. The only difference is civil unions has been a creation here in the United States of America over the last 25 years or so versus the institution of marriage that has been created by multiple societies over the course of centuries. And I think that's also an argument that was brought up by the Supreme Court earlier this week that needs to be considered and will be considered in their arguments amongst themselves as they move forward.
Let's get to that point, Jim. Has there been enough time, 10 years or so, since there's been same-sex marriage? And as Justice Kennedy, who's going to be the swing vote in this and has written the last 3 pro-gay rights opinions, said himself that the marriage is understood between a man and a woman since millennia plus time. Why don't we give it more time?
Well, this conversation has also been percolating for more than a millennia. Sure, it's come on to the front burner in the last 10 to 15 years, but no one should think for one second, that it's just some new novel trend or attempt to change things.
Gay marriage has been around for a millennia.
No,
Jim,
that's
we
not
have
what
not
I
been
said.
having this
the
debate.
argument
We have not been having this debate in regards to that for even 50 years, let alone a millennia. And that's where this narrative becomes politicized. I mean, there's something to be said about American citizens making sure that they have rights and protections, but can you do that without redefining something that has been around basically since the beginning of time? And when you start trying to craft a narrative to say that we've been arguing about this since we can remember, no, I can remember we've only been arguing this for about a decade now.
Well, wait a minute. Let me get into that, Lenny, and over to you, Jim, on that. Justice Kennedy and Justice Roberts were pretty even-handed in their questions. They didn't tip their hand.
No.
But one interesting thing is, according to the reports, of course, the folks that were there, Justice Kennedy said it's very difficult for the court to say, quote, we know better. This really, 1972 is about as far back as I could go with this if I want to look at it in the sense of when the court said in Baker versus Nelson that the court should not be involved in domestic relations. I mean, it's not been forever.
The conversation has been there. You can say that there hasn't been a debate for until the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. No, this is something that same-sex couples have wanted for a millennia. Maybe they've gotten the courage, maybe it's become more to the forefront as we continue to evolve as a society, but no, it has always been there. And these lines that are being drawn, in my opinion, are arbitrary and they're capricious. You're talking about 14th Amendment, you're talking about equal protection, and those are just as applicable to this situation as they were 100 years ago.
Well, Jim,
let me finish. When the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional for women to go to law school.
And there was also about interracial marriage.
Absolutely.
The courts have treated race differently than they treat
Why?
sex. I'm
Why?
just telling you what they do.
Why?
So, and in this case, can't you make an argument? Can't Lenny make an argument that says, wait a minute, we have federalism. The states take care of marriage. There's no federal right to same-sex marriage. It's a federalism issue.
That's the line in the sand right now. When majority rule in conservative states that can right away these things by constitutional amendment, when do you balance that against the needs of the minority who are disenfranchised because of it? That's what they're going to decide right now.
Justice Kennedy,
But hold on, Ellis. I mean, again, you look at states such as Illinois, they provided a way for same-sex couples to have the same rights and privileges and protections that they should have as American citizens that married couples had. They had the same exact thing. The only difference was it was not called marriage, and then we had to take it one step further 5 years later in the state of Illinois and other states like that because that wasn't enough. This is not about necessarily having legal protections as American citizens. This is about cultural acceptance, and that's where part of this gets into, and this is why a lot of Christian conservatives and others have a problem with this, because now it gets to your way of life is going to trump my faith and how we have defined marriage over the course of millennia.
This sounds hauntingly familiar to the segregation arguments in the Deep South with the different bathrooms and the buses and everything else. That is the same logic, and that failed too. We had intermarriage forever. I mean, you can go back to Moses. Moses was involved in an intermarriage. You've seen cultures crossing over for decades and centuries and millennia. You have not seen this same-sex marriage argument for millennia. That does not make it
despite
right.
what the left is trying to say now.
Okay, good enough. I'm not done. Are you guys going to stick around? Yeah, you're going to stick around. I want to talk to you about Baltimore. The best I know, Moses never appeared on NightTalk. Not that he wouldn't be welcome, but I want to talk about whether or not social change can be made with violence. And where's the line? I thought it used to be absolute. Peaceful, okay, violence not. Maybe not that way anymore. I want these guys' opinions.